All right. So this small video was just going to be about how and where to download texture maps so that you can use them to make something look slick. We're going to go into making the texture maps another video where you actually have to make them from scratch. But for now, we're going to look at taking existing texture maps and applying them to your models. So here I have this kind of like Aladdin-y sort of lamp, and it looks kind of, I guess, kind of sort of complex because there's all these patterns, but the model is very, very simple. It just looks like that. And if we go into edit mode, if I just select everything, go into edit mode, it's like a very simple, just regular, very simple lamp. So, but with the textures, obviously it looks like more intricate because you have all these patterns. And you could sculpt these, you could do them by hand, and you could make texture maps. But in this case, I just wanted to show you can be very lazy if you want to, and you can get existing texture maps and use them. So the texture maps that I used, one of them was just to get this broken up color in the lamp, the actual bronze color. Like it's an aged brass, not bronze, aged brass. So I'll go to the shader, and this is the body. And if you see, I have this texture map, which I downloaded, and I'll show you how to download it, which has this kind of scratched up metal color and all this texture and stuff like that. There's also the same place I downloaded the color, I also downloaded a roughness map, which is the same thing. And it, again, this is roughness shows you the shiny and non-shiny areas. So these white areas here are kind of not shiny. The dark areas here are more shiny, and the gray are kind of medium. So again, that gives you this, you can't really see it, that gives you this kind of just difference in texture. If I remove this completely, I just have the color, it doesn't quite look as interesting. But if I add the roughness map, you have this kind of breakup of shiny and non-shiny, so it looks like aged metal. So just those two maps together look pretty good. So that's this kind of aged brass color. For the top here, I also have the same exact, the color is exactly the same. So the color is literally the same map. The roughness is literally exactly the same map as before. But there's also a bump map, which creates this kind of pattern. So the bump map is literally just this, which is some random thing I downloaded from the internet as a vector. And I just looked around until I found something that looked kind of cool. I mean, this is a demonstration thing. And you can see just this kind of geometric, Islamic geometric pattern, right? And this image is being fed into the bump map, and I'll show you what that is. So bump is the way of basically making things look like they stick out. So in a bump map, the areas, actually I should put this in black and put this in non-color. Let's see if it makes any difference. Take a second here. Well, okay, it looks a little bit better like that. So here's this thing that I downloaded, and you see that it's white and there's black areas. Now, in a bump map, every area that's white will get pushed out. Every area that's black will get pushed in. And you see, actually in this case, it seems to be the exact opposite. The black circles are pushed out. So that's really easy. The only reason that's happening is because on this bump map node, which I'll show you how to do, there's actually something called invert. If I press this, it'll flip it, and now all those areas will be pushed in. If I flip this out, they'll be pushed out. So that's extremely easy. So if you have a black and white map, you can choose whether to have the black part stick out or stick in. So let me kind of show you where to get the maps first. Well, this is just from the internet. I'll show you how to get this, the color, and then I'm going to show you how to put the bump map on. So first of all, let's go to the World Wide Interweb. And if we see here, hopefully this is casting. Is it casting? Yes. This is called texturecan.com. Texturecan.com. And I just really Googled worn brass or old brass because I wanted to have like an old brass look. So I found this, which is again on TextureCan. I Googled it, worn brass, and I found this set of maps. So you see, when you find texture maps, you usually have, if you're lucky, a bunch of maps of the same texture. So to give this effect, there are several maps. The maps that are going to be included in this case is the color, which is called diffuse or albedo, a roughness map, which shows you the shiny and non-shiny areas. Often there's a normal map, which is the pushed out and pushed in, metallic map, displacement map even, which we'll get to in later classes. So basically, let's say I want to download this. I'm going to just download 1K. These are all different levels of resolution. The higher the resolution, the better quality the texture is, and the more memory and work it will take for the computer. So if you have a video game or a movie or something like that, when you see a big close-up of this lamp, it would have to be a very high quality texture map, like a 4K. If it was a video game, you don't see it from close, maybe a 1K. That means 1,000 pixels. So these are around, well, it's a little bit more than 1,000, but we'll say around 1,000 pixels, around 2,000, around 4,000. So I'm going to just download the 1,000 pixel one. Let me see if these are free. Oh, they're all free. Okay, well, I'm just going to stay with the 1,000. So I downloaded this 1K texture map. And if I go onto my textures here, this is the 1K. I'll click that. Just make sure it's showing. Yeah. I have all these different maps, and they're all zipped as usual. So I'm going to extract everything because they're all zipped. And once they're extracted, you should see the actual maps. Yes. Okay. So now I see I have all these weird maps. This is kind of typical when you download stuff. So this here is called the AO, the ambient occlusion map. It's showing you dark areas that would be kind of recessed in some sense. So the texture is a little bit darker in that area, and it just gives it more depth. The next map is the color. This is either called albedo or diffuse. Depends on what we'll be calling it. Albedo is the normal name, or diffuse is the old name, like diffusion. So albedo or diffuse will be the name of the color map. This one there's nothing in there, so I can't see much. There seems to be nothing in this map. Height map is usually showing you the surface detail, pushed in or out. There seems to be nothing on this map. Metallic, there's nothing because the whole thing's metal. So you don't really need to have this map because the whole thing is metal. If you had something where it was paint and metal, then this would actually show you the areas that were metal and not metal. But this is just all metal, so it doesn't show you anything. It's kind of a useless map. Again, this is the normal map. That would show you if there were details. There's no details. It's just kind of like a piece of brass. So there's nothing on that map. There's nothing there. And then this is just like a preview of what it will look like. So basically, the only real maps that are of importance are the metal map, sorry, the color map, and at the end, that roughness map that I showed you from before. That shows you the shiny and non-shiny areas. So all of this is on my computer. Then I'm going to go to Blender, open it up. I'll just detach all of this. Detach that, detach that. So if I'll just go back to white. So imagine this is just like that's all I had, right? Just this thing. So I'd want to, and the metallic is down. All right, so this is my actual like model, right? It just looks like that. So now I want to apply these maps. So I'm going to really just eliminate everything here. Okay, so what I would do is first add image. Image. Oh, add image. So the first thing I got to do is add these image texture nodes. Anytime I have a picture that has to be applied, anytime I need a texture, I need a node to plug in the texture, plug in the picture. In this case, I'm going to need two, the color and the roughness. So I'm just going to duplicate it by going Shift D. There you go. I just pressed Shift and D at the same time. That made me duplicate it. I need two. Now I'm going to open this. I'm going to go to my downloads. It was called Brass. I don't even know what it was called. Let's see what it was called. Today at 6:55, this was what it was called. And I'm going to take both the metal, the color, and the roughness. I'm going to take both maps at the same time. When you go into the shader tab and you're going to load maps, load them all in at once. That way they're all there, and you'll see what I mean. I load them all in. Now, I can only choose one at a time, but I'm going to choose the color. I had already had it loaded, but I choose the color. And to know that, it's easy. I can just kind of look at, oh, that's the color. I keep this at RGB because this is actually color information. And I take my color node, plug it into there. And it's going to take a minute, and now it loads. Now, let's say that if I find it a bit yellow. I don't like it to be too yellow. I want it to be a bit more dark. So I'm going to add another node, and this node is going to be called hue, saturation, and value. Hue, saturation, value. This allows me to change the actual color of the node. First of all, I'm going to put the value down. This makes it darker. I'm going to change the hue to make it a little bit more red. Let's see if I do 5.2, what happens. No, that's the opposite. 0.48. If right now, if you put it normally, it is at 0.5. If I go down, it's going to start to become more purple. It goes through all the color spectrum. If I go up, it's going to become more green. But of course, I don't have to just go by 0.1s, by tenths. I can go by much smaller than that. So I noticed I went down to purple. I don't want it to be purple. I just want it to be a bit more red. So I'm going to go 0.49, or maybe a little bit less, 0.48. That's a little bit more sort of brownish. Okay. So far it looks kind of weird because it's just some random stuff. It doesn't look metallic. Now I got to slide that metallic shader all the way. So now it's actually metallic. And the other thing I'm missing is the shininess. Now if I go all the way down, it becomes completely shiny. All the way there, completely matte. But I have my amazing roughness map. So I'm going to go here. I already loaded all the maps in. All I have to do is pick this one that says roughness. Once again, I'll show you what the map looks like. Roughness. It looks like a black and white map of almost like random stuff. And it is kind of random, but it gives like a random pattern of shiny and not shiny. So because it's black and white, instead of RGB, I'm going to put it to non-color. And then I'm going to plug this thing right into the roughness. And that gives me sort of a nice breakout. Now, again, I can do the same thing I did there. I can actually copy the hue, saturation, and value. Actually, I don't really need this. All I need to do is I can maybe make it a little bit more or less shiny if I add a node that is called contrast, brightness, and contrast. This is like Photoshop. If I make the node lighter, it will become more matte. Because remember, in a roughness map, white is completely matte. So if I make it brighter, it's going to become less shiny. Watch. See, less shiny. If I make it darker, it's going to become more shiny. But it already has those broken out colors. So it's not just becoming shiny or non-shiny, it still has the texture, the breakout. I want it to be a bit more contrasty. I want the non-shiny areas and the shiny areas to be more extreme. So I'm going to punch up the contrast a bit. Kind of looks more interesting like that. And I'm going to make it, I guess that's okay. Now the problem is I already made other textures of the same thing. So when I unhide this, they'll all look kind of different. See? So I'm going to go back to what I had before. I'm going to undo all of what I just did since I did everything already. I'm going to undo all of these things, blah, 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 blah. It's going to get rid of all this stuff. I'm going to go back to the beginning if I can. Can I? I'm just going to reopen this actually. Yeah, that's what it was in the beginning. Let's see exactly what I did. I did not touch the roughness map at all, but I did make the hue a little bit different. So that's what I have. So it's the same map as before, the color and the roughness. And now let's look at this pattern here, this weird pattern. So I'm going to go just to the top here. Now, the first thing you need to do is to find a pattern that you think is cool. Because now I cut this thing deliberately in a circle because I knew I just wanted to have the pattern on that part. So this is detached from everything else. When I modeled the entire teapot or whatever it is, a Aladdin lamp, I knew that this was going to be separated and the bottom was going to be separated and the handle was going to be separated because I needed to put different textures on it. So now this is a separate mesh. Now what I did is I made UVs from this, and I'll discuss UVs in a future class. UVs are a way of controlling exactly where the texture goes. It is basically a way of making a flat version of your mesh, or a flat impression of your mesh, so that you can actually add textures specifically. So I want to show you what this part, go back here. If I go to, I'll just go back to this here. Now I'm going to go and just get rid of this picture here. I just want you to see just the UVs, none of this stuff. All right. This is kind of a part of the sphere. Now, when you UV it, you're creating what this would look like. This piece would look like if it was a flat piece of paper. And it would look kind of like this, a flattened circle. So because now I have this in a flattened circle, I can find a picture which is a circular pattern. So I'll find that picture again. It was this. And what I did is I fit the UVs exactly in the right position. So for example, maybe they started out like this, or very small. And what I did is I scaled them up and moved them until they fit exactly over this pattern. So in the end, it's laid up over this pattern. So now this piece of mesh is fitting exactly over this picture that I have. Okay. So now that I have these UVs laid out over the picture, I'm going to detach this. Everything, it's the same color and texture as before. But now I have this picture. This picture that I downloaded, this thing. Right? Okay. So what I have to do is I have to plug this picture into what is called a bump map. Now, to find a bump map, I'm going to take this, I'm going to move this out of the way, I'm going to redo it. Okay. Whoop. I will go add bump. Bump. And I'd find bump. Bump means anytime you want the surface to look like it has a in and out, like a scaling, or in this case, pushed out raised texture, or skin pores, or wrinkles, or whatever, you can use what's called a bump node. Now, this is not real geometry. This is fake geometry. It will not print in 3D like this. There's another way of doing that, which I'll show you after in another video. This is just so that the render, the picture, looks like it has this detail. So I have this node, this bump node, and I have to plug something into it. So now I'll take, again, image texture, image, and I will choose the picture that I found on the internet. In this case, it's this, deposit photos. Put that at black and white because it's not a color picture. And I take the color and I plug it into the height. The black and white picture is telling the bump map what to push up and what to push down. Now I take this and I plug it directly into this thing that's called the normal. Now watch what's going to happen. It's going to be really crazy. And I wanted all those circular parts to go up. So, So I've pressed invert and now all the black parts are being pushed up and it's way too high. So I'm going to really kind of calm it down so it doesn't look quite that ridiculous. Maybe more like that. And now I have this impression of a raised pattern. And it's as easy as that. Now, like I said before, this is what is called, I guess I call it fake texture. You would use this for video games, for maybe movies, but you would not be able to print this because the model still looks like that. It's just an illusion of texture. Now in a future video, I'll show you how to take maps like this and actually make them used for pushing out the geometry so that you can print this. I could take exactly the same map and make a model with which this is actual real texture and print it with exactly the same map using something called displacement. But for now, I'm just keeping it as this bump map. So you can see that this bottom here and this were done in exactly the same way. In this case, I used the same map. Here I found some other texture to apply to it, but it's exactly the same thing. So this whole thing is a combination of the color and roughness that I got from the internet, from the texture, the brass texture, and this picture that I got from the internet here, which is that, and this one over here, another picture, and the picture just looks like that. Another geometric pattern, and that geometric pattern made these shapes. So you just have to look around the internet to find something that you like. Now, of course, you could also make these patterns by hand in Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, something like that. So sometimes I've done it where I custom make the pattern. In this case, I just wanted to show you getting patterns from the internet. So this whole thing did not take very long to do, probably a half an hour or 40 minutes to make the entire thing. So